Let's begin with a look at the rule joint. I've got the two router bits that you're going to use for a rule joint loaded up here on my router. The one that's actually in the router is a 1/2 inch round over bit, and it is paired with a 1/2 inch cove bit. Now you could buy these router bits as a set, but there's no need to, because as long as the two match up, meaning both of these are 1/2 inch, and you can also do this joint with a 3/8 set, which is a 3/8 round over and a 3/8 cove, then there's no reason to buy the set. We're going to begin the first operation with this round over bit, and the idea is to present just a little bit of the square portion of the router bit right down at this edge. So let's take a look at the rule joint so you can get an idea of what we're exactly talking about and where it's useful in furniture. This is an example of the rule joint. It's a fancy joint that is not a simple butt joint. And it's most often found in harvest tables, on drop leaf tables, and a lot of the shaker counters that were done in the different villages also employ this joint. The way it works is there is the round over portion and then the cove portion. You can see how they match up. And then as the leaf is raised and lowered, it slides right over that rounded section. And it always gives you a wood look without actually seeing the hinge that are underneath it. And I'll flip this over in just a second and show you the hinge. So what makes this joint really nice is that any of the dust that settles in the air over time or so is going to hit on this rounded section and it's going to fall down, as opposed to if we just had two square pieces of wood butted there, you'd have one big plain surface. Now, one thing I want to call attention to right away, if you look at this edge, you'll see that it's a continuous nice flat edge. Well, there's a reason for that, and the reason is I haven't recessed the hinges that are below. So let me flip this over and show you the hinges. Now, these are drop leaf hinges that are on here, and you see the way they're set is the barrel of the hinge has to actually be recessed into your major piece or your top work piece, not into the leaf. And then the leaves on these hinges are bigger on the leaf side than they are on the tabletop side. So it bridges that little bit of a difference and allows you to hook into the leaf. Now, some people would look at this and say you should recess those leaves, and I have seen period examples with the leaves recessed into the pieces as well. It's a cleaner look from the bottom, but again, when you look at it from the top, you would then see the small area that would have been recessed right out here, and that would show that hinge. And for me, I don't like that. It's not as pleasing to my eye. So I tend not to recess these hinges. If you're looking for some more information on drop leaf hinges, Popular Woodworking magazine did a great article just a few issues back, and that PDF will be included on the DVD. So as we're doing this now, let me go ahead and get set up, and I'll run through this joint and show you how to put it together. So let's take a look at the setup here and talk about some of the variations that you're going to run into. The first cut we're going to do is with the round over portion that we've got loaded in the router. As I put it up against the area that's already cut, you can see the bearing down here is not going to actually rub against our wood. One of the ideas behind a bearing piloted router bit is the bearing runs along the wood and the router bit cuts that area. So if I'm below that, that means that the router is going to cut, but the bearing is not going to stop the cut. So the router could actually cut into my workpiece further than I want it to. So to offset that on this joint, it's very simple to take a second piece of wood and align the two edges completely. And what's interesting here is a nice little shortcut, as opposed to having a separate piece of wood, is the leaves that you're working on can act as your secondary piece underneath here. It's not going to be damaged at all. It's just going to act as a pilot to guide the bearing. So I want to put a couple clamps on to hold everything in place, and then we'll make the first cut. Okay, so everything's set. Now when I put the router back up to the workpiece, you can see that that bearing is going to run right along that edge and only cut the top piece, which is our main table part. All right, so with everything set up, I want to make a run practice through to make sure that my base is going to clear past my clamps, which I'm going to, and now I'm ready to make the first cut. Now there's a couple things we want to talk about here. As I was running the router, you could actually hear a little bit of a high-pitched noise. That would be the pieces of the wood being tore off. What's interesting when using a roundover bit is you generally don't run into those kind of problems, and you can hear, even though we heard it, you can see that the cut's fairly clean. The thing you want to check at this point is the distance that you have on your square section, because that's going to transfer into the next piece. If this is small, then you're going to have a very fine edge on your joining piece. So you want to make sure that this is like 3/16 of an inch or so, give or take. And then from there, you just want to make sure that everything is clean, that you've cut from edge to edge, and that you have a nice clean joint. At that point, this section of the work is done, and we'll change the router bits and put the cove bit in and work on the leaf part. I've changed the roundover bit out and installed the cove bit into the router. And the idea here is we want to leave the material down that's going to equal this offset. We actually want just a small amount of gap. So when we finish this cut, the amount of wood left right at our edge is going to be slightly less than the flat area that we have here from the first cut. Now, this router set up, I'm not trying to get to the full depth right away. What I'm going to do is set this up and do it in a couple steps for two reasons. One is it's easy to dial in. The second reason is with the cove cut bit like this, you're very likely to get some blowout of your wood. So two things need to happen. If you can, you need to make sure you run from the fat to the thin area. If you look at the grain on the board, you want to run with the grain as it goes out on this. And you can see here, it's very easy to see the green color in this poplar, how that fades to the outside edge. So I'm going to set up and run from here down just like we did before, making sure that the grains work. Then by having it in a step situation, I'll be able to dial in exactly the cut that I need, even if I have to stop and check it a couple times. So with that all set up, we're ready to go ahead and make this pass. Now you can see here that it's obvious that the square point part that we have left is by far thicker than what we have over here. So we know we have to dial that down just a little bit, and that's what we'll do next. Even if I do this and it takes me 3 attempts at it, I'm fine with that, because you've got one shot at this, you want to make sure that it works. Okay, as I look at it now, I'm getting pretty close. So I want to also point out, let me pull this back over so you can see. In the first scenario, because of the way the router bit configuration was, our bearing was not going to be able to run on the wood. Here, the bearing is always going to be in contact with our wood. That's why we don't have to have a secondary piece underneath it. So I'm going to dial this down just a little bit more, and we should be right where we need to be. Now you may not have noticed it, but as I was running there, I had a little bit of a bump and had a nick in that and needed to run it a second time. And because of the bearings, you're able to go back over this time and time again. All right, so now we'll just clean it off and we'll actually use our 2 pieces to test and see where we're at. Okay, so if I put pressure here, I should be able to move this lower one, and I can't do that. So that means I need to drop that bit just a little bit more and make another pass. All right, this should be the last one we need. Hold down, I should be able to slide this one, and then I want to check that just to make sure that there's littlest bit of gap right there at the top. So that looks like it's dialed in perfectly. At this point we need to install the hinges, and we've got that section done. So you can see the drop leaf hinge or the rule joint is a very simple hinge to put in or process to route. It's 2 router bits and you've got the complete joint ready to go. Now if there's a secret to installing these hinges, it's right here. You have to bury that knuckle of the hinge into the wood. And the way to do it is to line it up right with the front edge of the joint. It has to be right in line with that small fillet area. And the way I did this was I just took a straight bit and loaded it into my plunge router and used it. Now you can see that because of the knuckle size, I actually using a 1/4 inch bit, I had to make a couple passes. Or you can get a little bit bigger bit. Either way you want to go. But it's simply just laying it out, plunging down, moving the cut forward until you can fit the hinge knuckle right down inside there. It's a very simple process, and it makes all the difference in the world on mounting this, because you want the leaves to be flush with your work pieces, and the knuckle has to fit down into the area that you just routed out. So I'll go ahead and attach these up, and we'll take one final look at the rule joint. All right, so with the screws back in place and the hinges located, you can see that you have a completed rule joint. It's a fantastic joint for harvest tables, drop leaf tables, and it'll make your shaker work even better.